Hello, friends, and welcome back to Owning Authenticity. I'm Carly, and I'm so glad that you're joining us for another video in this Pisces North Node series. As a Pisces North Node, I have been looking forward to this transit for years, so it's so exciting to almost be there at the time I'm releasing this video. We've still got a few weeks left to go before the Pisces North Node transit officially starts in January of 2025. But once it gets into Pisces, the North Node into Pisces, the South Node into Virgo, then it'll be there for 18 months. So until July of 2026, we will be going through this cycle of purging and working through the pieces of Virgo energy that are actually standing in our way from our next step of evolution. And we will be doing that by developing the Pisces end of our energy and becoming even stronger and more resilient, more able to use our Pisces gifts. And in those gifts getting bigger, it naturally balances out the over-exaggerated Virgo energy. And we're going to talk all about what is Virgo energy, what is Pisces energy. This is also the second video in the series, so there's a broader overview where in this video today we are going to focus specifically on the ruling planets of Pisces and the ruling planet of Virgo. So we're going to look at Mercury, Jupiter, and Neptune and the transformational path of going from Virgo to Pisces energy. And so I want to pause there and say that this 18-month period from the beginning of 2025 through the middle of 2026 is going to be especially impactful for anybody who has strong Pisces energy in their chart already, and for anybody who has strong Virgo energy in their chart, or a combination of both of those. I imagine at some point I'll do a video similar to what I did for the Aries North Node cycle, where we'll also get into how does this affect the other mutable signs of Gemini and Sag? How does this affect the other earth and water signs? How does this affect, etc., etc.? So there's lots of videos coming in this series because I love talking about it. So that's pretty simple criteria for we're going to keep talking about it. And so if you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to leave those in the comments and I will do my best to answer that question at some point in a video. And I also want to mention that I made you guys something. I made a PDF guide for you to look at how does this transit affect you personally. And you would look at where is Pisces in your chart? Where's Virgo in your chart? And then what does that mean for, let's say, your Pisces energy to be in your 11th house or to be in your 6th house? What does it mean for your Virgo energy to be in your 1st or your 10th? What does that mean? So I wanted to answer that question because I got that a lot on some past North Node content. People wanting to know, how is this going to play out in my life? And I celebrate that question because the nodes, they churn up a lot as far as showing us what's standing in our way and showing us the leading edge of where we're ready to develop next. And I have a video coming for you on 10 different areas of developing Pisces energy. We're going to get really deep and expansive in Pisces energy and all of the beautiful rewards one can expect from developing this magical energy. Okay. But for today, as I mentioned, we are going to focus into the ruling planets of Pisces and Virgo and talk about this transformational journey that we are as a collective going on during these 18 months. Some other videos that are coming up in the series, I'm also going to be doing crossover videos where we look at the different natal north nodes and do an analysis on like what can you personally expect from this transit. Like, for example, what if your north node is in Virgo and your south node is in Pisces, right? That would be the opposite of what this transit is, where we've got the north node on the Pisces end and the south node on the Virgo end. Or if like you're a Taurus north node, and what does that entail as far as like, you know, am I doing Taurus north node stuff or am I doing Pisces north node stuff? Like, now I'm confused. Again, speaking out of my comments. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone who ever leaves a comment. Bless you. Learning in public is one of the most generous things we can do. And so these videos answer the question of like the collective, like everybody during this 18-month period, we are all having our Virgo limitations served up to us. We are all feeling a pull to develop our Pisces energy. And that will serve and benefit every person individually based on what is your mission, what's your life path, what's your purpose. And that's a factor of like all the other energy that's already going on in your chart, in your personal design. So when we think about that example of like Taurus North Node and like, what about the Pisces North Node? Well, there's a synergy between developing our Pisces energy and how that's going to funnel back into our, in this example, Taurus North Node life path that is always going on, right? Like your natal North Node is always your curriculum, your natal chart, just one big syllabus of all the things you're here to learn. And so we can review this lesson plan by talking about what's your natal North Node. Maybe it's Gemini, maybe it's Leo, doesn't matter. We're going to do them all and pull the insights back from the Pisces North Node and apply them to every single natal North Node position. So if you are here and everything that came out of my mouth just now actually made sense to you, and you're like, yes, I want to see my North Node video of you talking about my natal North Node, go ahead and leave me a comment for like, what is your natal North Node? Because my natural instinct is to do the cross nodal return first, do the Virgo North Node first. So yeah, that's what I'm planning to do. And other than that, I have no order. So if you have a vote, feel free to cast it in the comments. Okay. And I think I got off subject earlier when I was talking about the PDF guide of like answering it for like what house it's in. You can find a link to that in the description box down below and download your free copy anytime. That's there for you. That's the Pisces North Node end of like what house is that in. If you want the Virgo South Node end of what's going on the opposite side of your chart, you can grab that in my Etsy shop. The link for that is also in the description box. So let's dive in to this axis. Okay. So like every single energy is every single one of the zodiac archetypes. We all have all of them. Okay. That's one of my favorite things to say about astrology is that we are all of them. We're all 12 of the zodiac archetypes. So like everybody has Virgo energy. Everybody has Pisces energy. According to my beliefs. Obviously, you are welcome to believe whatever you want. But that means that this axis is alive inside of every person's chart. An axis just meaning that Virgo and Pisces are always opposite to each other in our natal chart. And with that, when you have two signs that are opposite of each other, an opposition literally is like a game of tug of war. Okay, it's like two people on either side, like pulling in two completely different directions. In this case, Virgo wants to go this way and do it this way, and Pisces wants to go the opposite way and do it the opposite way. So they don't necessarily agree on approach. However, the opposite signs always agree on values. Okay, like they have this like common foundation where both of them are planted in those values, and then they approach it completely differently. Okay, all doing the same thing, all looking very different. So when we think about this axis and the ways that they want to do it differently. The key challenges of that. I've got 4. So the first one is balancing practicality with spiritual pursuits. So Virgo is an earth energy. It's very grounded in the practical, in what are our responsibilities? What are the priorities? Which of the priorities are important? Which of the important priorities is urgent? Now we've prioritized into something we could take action on. Very, very analytical and practical and efficient. Okay, Virgo energy. And the other side of that, so like you think about like that version running your life of like, it's all got to map out, the math has to math, like we need logic, we need proof, we need evidence, and like that's how you live, that's your approach. On the flip side, Pisces is spiritual and connected to the universe, connected to the all, the interconnectedness of all beings through the energetic field that we are all a part of. So like, just hear the difference. I'm like, they're looking at each other like, WTF, okay, you are totally killing my buzz. They both think that. So balancing the practicality with spiritual pursuits. And, you know, as a Pisces North Node, the way I see this playing out for me is I bring a lot of the question like into my spiritual practice and into like all the exploration I ever do. I am constantly asking the question, like, how do I apply this? You know, like, yeah, that's really cool information, but I've got a job to do. Like Virgo, like just always doing something. I have important things to do. Okay. My time is valuable and I want to make sure I get the most done that I can, that matters, the stuff that matters. So of all these things that I'm learning, what do I do with it? What do I use this for? How do I use it in my life to make my life better? And if I can make my life better, that means I can make other people's lives better. So I am like consistently looking through the lens of this spiritual pursuit, my Pisces end of like really opening myself up to very different ideas than what I was raised with or ever encountered. But always rooting it back down into practical, into like, okay, so then how am I going to make decisions differently, given that I now have this exposure, this experience, this feeling, this, et cetera, as I develop my Pisces end. So yes, they look at it in 2 completely different ways, but like there is a benefit to having both, because really truly what you end up with at that point is balance. You end up with like this Pisces expansiveness and exploration and freedom and hope and optimism and buoyancy, and the Virgo like ground of like, okay, but like let's plant these seeds in the ground and see what we can grow so that we can eat it, you know? Like let's do some stuff with it and not just float in the ethers, which can be fun too. Okay. Next challenge. Number 2, letting go of the need for perfection and embracing imperfection. Okay, so Virgo is like this attention to detail where you can literally like blink your eyes and like go back and forth between the reality of it and your imagined potential version. So yes, you have like a perfectionistic drive, like with that overemphasized Virgo energy, but at the same time, like essentially what we're saying is like you have the ability to witness and like actually make real continuous improvement. Like you can see potential. You can like see things that aren't there yet. Like it's a freaking gift if ever I saw one. And so like never are we saying we want to like chop off the Virgo end and like only have the Pisces end. Like, no, we want to make the most of Virgo end and we want to open up more into our Pisces energy. And to do that, we embrace imperfection. And even just this idea of perfection and imperfection, like it's such a human concept. And in that way, it's very Virgo. It's very much like, I need a word to describe something that has not been perfected, which is just funny from a certain angle that says like everything that exists has been perfected, like through a spiritual lens of like God and like the creation or whatever, like divine timing of everything is always unfolding according to this higher plan. If you choose to believe that, you know, like that's available for anybody. There's a lot of peace in a belief like that, but there's like even just kind of dissolving rather than embracing imperfection. Like you want to take it one step further and just allow everything to be in its perfection. I'm talking beautiful things. I'm talking stinky things. I'm talking like good feeling, bad feeling. Like let it be in its perfection because it exists. And if it exists, then that means it was created out of something. So like there are ingredients in this thing that can be experienced, can be absorbed. And that's if we have the eyes to see it. And the problem with imperfection is that, like the problem with seeking perfection and pushing away imperfection is that it denies us so much of the deliciousness of life when we are, instead of embracing the value of what is present, we are caught up in trying to make it something else. So there is this like harmony between seeing things in their perfection and loving what is. That's like the literal name of a book. Okay. I believe by Byron Katie, but like absolutely seeing the value and perfection of anything that's ever happening ever. That's a stretch for most humans. But when you can do that and you can literally tune into love for anything and then let ideas for continuous improvement flow through from that place, it's as they say, the come from matters. Like, where are you coming from? Because on the Virgo side and this whole debate between perfection and imperfection, we're seeking an ideal that like doesn't even exist. So there's like almost like a delusion in perfectionism that's like really precious, especially when we really let it start to degrade our mental health because we can't be satisfied by what is because it has to be better than that. Like, hello, I've lived there for a long time, okay? Like, I get it, and it's suffering is what it is. And so to allow things to be right now takes this pressure off of us of like, I need to fix it. Because no, you don't, because it's good. It's really good the way that it is. And there's a lot to appreciate about it the way that it is. And in my appreciation for it, I may have an idea about how to expand it. And that's fun. But I'm expanding it through loving it. And that's very different than trying to fix it because it's not perfect yet. You know, so these are like subtle distinctions, but there are deep icebergs of contemplations and social conditioning and self-reflection in order to create enough of a pause to be able to catch yourself in a moment trying to control and like protect your cherished outcomes, like to perfect and to make it how you want it to be. And while you're doing that, you're missing how beautiful it is right now. You know, there's like a sleep in the middle of your life kind of phenomenon that like is perfectionism, where you're not enjoying any of it. And that is a little bit sad. And when we talk about the gifts of developing Pisces energy, it's like sense of purpose and fulfillment and satisfaction and like filling that hole up in what it's really hungry for. You know, is like feeling alive. We don't need another car. We don't need to lose weight. We don't need to perfect another spreadsheet. We don't need to do that. We need to tap into the spiritual dimensions and the love and beauty and energy that is in every single moment. Like, it's always there because you are there. You are it. You are the creator of it. So let's do the next challenge because it fits so perfectly right here. Number 3, the challenge is to develop trust in the unseen and the unknown, because Virgo is very compelled to perfect the physical, which is to say the things that can be studied and measured and seen and heard and smelled and tasted and touched and etc., etc. And Pisces is more on the end of intuition and the way you feel and being able to sense, perhaps you would call it psychically, energy shifts and different momentum that is like, this sounds really far out, but this is how I would put it, is like when you can feel that a timeline has real validity and it is actually magnetic because it is so possible. When you feel like a pull, like a heart calling, like a, you know, I've told stories on my channel before about when I became an entrepreneur and how I was like downloading this message of like, your business is ready for you. Your business is ready for you. And eventually I listened, but for a long time I didn't, because I didn't have proof. I was doing my Virgo thing. I was like, I'm not going to just like fucking quit my job because what, like, Spirit told me to. Like, that's just not going to happen. And then I did, because the message continued and the feeling got clearer, and it was such a full body hell yes, which at the time I did not have language for, but now I do. That is you resonating with a timeline that is ripe and ready to be chosen. These are, again, my beliefs. I'll blanket this whole entire video with that disclaimer that like, this is just me talking about how I see the world. Like, you don't got to believe it like this. But when a timeline is truly real, as in you can choose it, you can choose your way onto it, it'll call you. You'll feel this pull. And that pull is the viability of all the cooperative components are ripe, and that could totally fall into place, you know? And then it's really just a question of like, can you trust that? Can you trust the unseen and the unknown? Can you feel called to something? You know? Like the sacred calling, like you were called. Like there are all kinds of stories of humans who have felt the call. And what is that? You know, I made up a story about choosing timelines because I like that, but I mean, you could think of it as anything. Whatever you want. Who's calling you? And are you answering? You know, I'm back to my Virgo end of like super practical. What are you doing with it? Are you answering that phone? Because it's ringing for every single one of us. You know, like temptation and calling aren't that different as far as like we feel alluring to certain things. And it's just a matter of like, are you being lured into something that feels familiar? As in like, it's more that south node end of like repeating old patterns. You know, if you're starting a relationship in the same exact way as you've started every other relationship, then, you know, I wouldn't be too surprised if it also ends in a very similar way, you know, versus like the unseen and the unknown. Like, can you trust the feeling of it? Can you just feel the call and answer the call, one stepping stone at a time? You know, that's something that like especially with Virgo energy, wanting to plan, wanting to analyze, wanting to map it all out and have like, here's our charted course and here's a backup plan and here's a contingency for in case it rains and we better go ahead and pack, an extra 3 days worth of food because we might get stuck out there. That's a risk that could happen. And we're just covering all the bases. Okay. Versus like, I have the strongest feeling to leave now, go get on a plane and go to Chicago. You want to go? And we just go get on a plane and like go to Chicago. Like that's more the Pisces end of like, if the energy says do it, then do it, And that is hard because again, that Virgo energy wants to make all the plans and Pisces is just going to jump and like, scary for that Virgo South Node end of like, I need more information, but that's really not the way, right? Pisces North Node is a lot about a leap of faith. It's about a willingness to like, will you take a step forward even though you have no idea what the second step looks like? Are you willing to take a step if all I give you is one at a time? Are you willing to let me lead you there? And I don't know whose voice I'm saying right now, but like, that's how it feels when you're being called. It's like the GPS just giving you one turn at a time, easy peasy, simple, and it's just like, what should I do right now? And often the answer is just be still. Like, you don't need to do anything right now. Like, there's actually not much to do, like again, that's Pisces energy of like, let's just float, man. Like, and often I practice floating for the sake of like, there's really nothing else to do. I'm not going to keep myself busy. I'm not going to just do busy work because I need to be busy. No, not unless it's fun to be busy. And then of course, I'll do anything that's fun. But this trusting in the unseen and the unknown and allowing the path to unfold one step at a time because you can feel an energetic connection to what it is that you're being guided towards. And when I say that, I also mean like, what does the pull feel like? Does it feel good? Does it scare you? Is it hurting you? Is it making you feel better? Is it like, how does it feel? And if it's hurting you, I wouldn't follow it if that were me, but it doesn't matter what I would do. You're in your reality. And if it was me, if it felt really good, I take the step. I go stand on that step and then I'm like, okay, and so now what? Well, be still for a second and we'll bring you your next step. And okay, there it is. And so then I'll stand on it and you're just like getting moved forward, like piece on a chessboard, like one step at a time based on those impulses, those intuitive nudges of like, here's what feels like the right next step. And especially when I say full body hell yes, it's like, do what you can't not do, basically. And if there's nothing that you can't not do, then do nothing, like you don't need to do something all the time. And that's a very hard lesson for a Virgo South Node to learn. And the last challenge of this axis is shifting from criticism to self-compassion, both with yourself as well as with others. So when we go back to, especially like perfection and imperfection, like I think a lot of times like Virgo Pisces people, myself included, when we are offering our criticism, we certainly don't mean it as criticism. Okay. Like Pisces Virgo is about helping. And that is one of the shared values in that foundation that both of those energies are planted in, is like they both want to help, period. Like selfless service, being of service, making a contribution. Yeah. Like, what can I do? Tell me and I'll do it. Okay. Like just dedicated to service. And that doesn't mean that what you say isn't taken as criticism. Okay. And there is like a shadow in Virgo and Pisces where basically I would boil it down to like you need to be needed. And so you'll make yourself needed. You'll create dependencies for other people to need you because you need to be needed. And I am speaking out of my own personal experience. I still practice not being needed. Nobody needs anything from me right now. It's a hard feeling to sit with. Okay. And that's often what's driving our get busy attitude of like, no, I got stuff to do. I got to be productive, like blah, blah, blah. Like mostly we want to do stuff that's going to get us points with other people. we want to be of service. We want to like be needed, you know? So it's precious. It really is like just such a good guess. And as we move more into the Pisces side of things and we start to see the beauty and the threads that are there to appreciate in everything, in every moment, again, that really lets compassion take root and grow in terms of just friggin' love people. Like I love this saying, I've been thinking about this a lot lately of like, I don't need to teach you, I'll love you and love will teach you. Okay. Like I don't gotta lift a finger. All I gotta do is love you. Like it's so the easiest thing in the world to just love somebody, except for that Virgo South Node tendency that wants to find where we could make some improvements, you know, start drawing up some plans and do some sketches and work up a budget and like we'll just overhaul this whole thing. Okay. We could just make it even better. Like, and again, if that's fun, sweet. And if it's hurting you, then not sweet, you know, like, so shifting from criticism to compassion and loving ourselves, like deepening our own self-love and deepening the unconditional love that we have for other people and offering them that soft, gentle space of loving acceptance and kindness as often as we are humanly able, okay? We're not back in the Virgo loop of like, gotta do it perfectly. Like if anything, we use our compassion practice to soothe that perfectionistic voice as far as like, we don't want to silence that voice. We want to talk to it. We want to relate to it and ask it some questions and offer it some hugs and wrap it in a white, fluffy blanket of compassion and understanding and say, you know what? Thank you for being here. What's your story? What's your story, Miss Perfectionistic Patty? Like, what happened? You know, and we want to interview that part. We want to understand that part. So like, again, we're not trying to cut off the critical voice. We're trying to use our compassion practice to aim it at the critical voice. Have compassion for your self-criticism. Have compassion for your self-judgment. Have compassion for how harsh you are with yourself. You know, like these are powerful medicines that we can use inside of ourselves for free, anytime. You know, like my belief is most of the best healing modality that we can have access to is inside of our own spirit. Okay, like we are naturally healthy beings when our mind does not cut us off from that reality by believing other things like it's not actually true. Okay, so like our mind is very powerful. Our Virgo energy, our Mercury ruled Virgo energy is very powerful. It will create our reality, but so will our Pisces North Node energy, our Neptune Jupiter ruled Pisces energy. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into these ruling planets and what flavor that adds to this contemplation that we can take with us. So South Node in Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And what that means, I guess, before we go into talking about like these ruling planets of Virgo and Pisces, every sign has a ruling planet, and it's like a harmonious relationship where like the attributes of Mercury's archetype are very at home in Virgo energy. Like the archetype of Mercury and the archetype of Virgo dance and blend and overlap a lot. Okay, just like on the Pisces end of things, the archetypes for both Jupiter and Neptune are in alignment with the attributes of Pisces energy. So that's where the ruling planets have been assigned, and Pisces has two because Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces and Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. So we're going to go through both of those actually because they have very different flavors. And I've even seen like in some Pisces like Facebook groups and stuff, like when they talk about ruling planets of Neptune and Jupiter, it's like, are you more a Neptune Pisces or a Jupiter Pisces? And I think like it's dimensions inside the soup. Okay. Like it's like carrots and celery in the same soup. Like the soup has both, and we will go through both. And then we'll talk about like, since the South Node represents where we're coming from and the North Node represents where we're leaning into, we're going to talk about the journey, like the transformational journey of moving from this Virgo end to the Pisces end. So we shall start with Mercury, which is the ruler of the South Node in Virgo. Mercury represents our analytical mind and how we process information. So like when you look for your natal Mercury in your natal chart and look at what sign and house it's in, and what other planets are nearby, you'll start to understand like your unique flavor of learning, of absorbing information, of analyzing information, of what kind of information do you pay attention to? Okay. And this goes back to a conversation I was having at lunch at my grandma's the other day, where my brother was like railing against like stupid people and how nobody knows about like common sense. Like it was this whole thing about common sense. And I was like, I don't think common sense is all that common. Like I think pretty much everybody has their own definition of like what that even is. A lot based on their Mercury, like a lot based on their own personal energy and like the way they see the world. And he just like fought me every bit of that of like, nope, it's common and they're stupid for not knowing. I'm like, well, okay, how's it working out for you? Mercury also shows us our tendency to seek understanding through detailed analysis. Okay. As opposed to more of a gut instinct or like a sense or your values or like your highest ambitions or like, I mean, these are like some of the other types of ways that you might go about making a decision. But when it requires detailed analysis to understand something, that's like where you're going to apply your Mercury. It also influences our need to categorize, organize, and make sense of experiences. So again, we're like analyzing and sorting and putting labels on things and making file folders and like all kinds of things that help us to keep our information nice and tidy. Mercury also is about indicating where we might over rely on logical thinking and mental processing, like you're really in your head about stuff. I think I overthink kind of business there. And last but not least, it reflects our comfort with practical, tangible solutions and clear communication. Okay, like Virgo is about the known and Mercury is about collecting the details and the information about what's known. Okay, so that's Mercury. That's where we're coming from. Like that's the Mercury is on the South Node end of things. So I used this analogy in my video a couple years ago when I was talking about Taurus North Node and Scorpio South Node, that like the South Node going through a sign is like a car wash where like old things are being scrubbed away. So like the South Node going through Virgo is basically prompting everyone to take their own personal Mercury, like wherever Mercury is in your natal chart, and take it through a car wash, right? Like clear away some of your biases, open your mind, learn new things. we're going to get more into like ways to kind of like give your Mercury a little bit of a shakeup in a really helpful way of like getting some things out of your way so that you can think more clearly and like lean more into building a life that is fulfilling and satisfying to you, which is ultimately where we're headed on the Pisces North Node end of things. So when we think about Pisces North Node, co-ruled by Jupiter and Neptune, Jupiter is the traditional ruler, and Jupiter is about faith. Okay? Faith, higher learning, reaching beyond our comfort zone or our culture and going out into the beyond. Okay? And that's Jupiter. It's also about expansion, which is very much about getting outside of our comfort zone and going into the beyond, going into the unknown. And faith, which essentially boils down to trusting the unseen. Okay? Like, I don't know, faith as a word is like really co-opted in culture to be synonymous with some sort of religion, but faith is a muscle. Okay? Not that different than like a singing voice or even a bicep. Okay? Faith is a muscle that can absolutely lift heavy situations. Okay? So very, very practical tool, your faith. So I don't know how much time you spent thinking about your faith and how you cultivate it, but it has been one of the single most life-changing things that I have ever like developed for myself personally is my own organic relationship to my faith, because of the resilience and the peace and the fulfillment that gives me to be able to face like, dude, like we live on planet Earth. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like there's some real awful shit that goes down here. And how do you be with that? You know, how do you be with it when your dog dies, when you lose anything that means anything to you? Like, how do you be with it? And for me, like that's become faith. And faith not through a book or an external organization or anything like that, but like faith through what I can feel. Faith to my connection in a higher power, which I can feel, right? Like, I don't believe in God, the universe, source energy, whatever you want to call it. For me, those are all the same thing. I don't believe in it. I know it. I feel it. So that level of knowing it and feeling it and having faith in it and like resting in it and letting this inner feeling and connection be my sanctuary. Like, back when I was like spinning in my Virgo South Node, self-criticism, perfectionism, socially anxious, freaking neurotic mental case, like back when that was my life, like I identified as atheist. Like I never would have thought possible, like the reality that I live in now, that I have that like the padding of my faith to kind of like insulate me from the harsher bumps of being alive in the physical. It's a beautiful thing. Jupiter is also guiding us towards broader, more inclusive perspectives, right? You want to know about the opposite of inclusive is perfect, perfect, perfectionism, imperfection, this whole concept of like either something is perfect or it's not perfect. And it's like, dude, it's way more complicated than that. Okay. So like a broader, bigger picture. Jupiter also encourages growth through optimism and belief in possibilities. Okay. Like this whole idea that like anything is possible. Pisces is like a really creative energy, and this is part of that. Like when you look at your life, you are essentially looking at a canvas that is mostly blank and just a little bit filled in. And at any point, if you don't like what's on the canvas, you can just paint over it. Like you can literally create your life to be anything that you want. Anything is possible. And how much you believe in that is how much you will take action on the possibilities that you can see, right? Do you believe in what you can see? Or is that back in the category of the unknown, right? The untested, the unproven, not scientifically validated, Like there's no thesis, there's no study, there's no evidence. Like there's just, this feels really freaking good. And can I be with that or not? But if it feels good, then Jupiter also gives us that high level of optimism of like, no, I think I can do something with this good feeling that I have. Jupiter also helps us find meaning beyond the practical and mundane. Like it's kind of the meaning maker planet where, this would be like working with a belief, like everything is always working out for me. Okay, because if you can hold that belief of everything is always working out for me and then apply your Jupiter energy to make up a story about how is whatever situation you're in working out for you. How is this working out for me? And I see people like, and maybe this is where you need to start. Okay, like, but you apply it to something that you really love. And you're like, everything is always working out for me. And I'm like, yes, okay, that's definitely one way to practice it. The way more powerful way to practice it is to find the thing that bothers you the most and apply everything is always working out for me. And sit with it and study, like use that Mercury detailed analysis, like study the situation through the belief, through the lens, through the perspective of everything is always working out for me. Find out why. And now you've got information, right? You're seeking out that broader perspective, something that you didn't see before. And now like that practical side of like, okay, so then what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to apply it? How are you going to put that into practice now that you see this bigger picture? So let's see, we've got one more. Jupiter also shows how wisdom can come through surrender and acceptance. So like what that means to me, and this is a great one. I would love to hear in the comments, like, what does that mean to you? But what that means to me shows us how wisdom can come through surrender and acceptance. The story I just told about applying the belief, everything is always working out for me, applying that to your reality before you have the proof. You're essentially surrendering to this is true. I'm going to operate based on this truth, which I do not have evidence to support yet. But by operating based on that truth, by looking at the world through it's true that everything is always working out for me, you create the evidence. You start to stack up the instances of how it is absolutely 100% true that every single situation you ever find yourself in is absolutely working out for you. Every single one. Oh, you got arrested and put in jail? Totally working out for you. Okay. You got dumped, you got fired, you got working out for you. How's it work? Like everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. So like accepting that and letting you become a magnet of knowing and having faith that everything is always working out for me. And if I can't see it yet, it's just a matter of time until I can see the reason why this is actually really working out for me. And after, like 8.5 years of practicing that, I can tell you that the more reps you do in the gym, the stronger and more stable and solid that perspective comes, like as your default of like every single situation you are looking through these eyes of like, how is this working out for me? Why is this a great thing that's unfolding in my life right now? What am I learning from this? What possibilities are coming online that weren't here before? What wisdom am I gaining? Always, 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 all of those things are happening, but are we seeing it? It's a matter of what filter you're looking through. And Jupiter is a lot about your filter. So you can look in your natal chart at your natal Jupiter and see like what kind of lenses, what kind of beliefs, what kind of like perspective is likely to be shaping your reality. Okay, because the sign and house of your Jupiter is going to tell us a lot on that front. So the other ruler of Pisces is Neptune. This is the modern ruler. This is like the more modern way of looking at Pisces energy. Back in the traditional astrology days, like before the outer planets were discovered, that's why they weren't in the mix, because we didn't know they existed yet, like as a collective. But once they were discovered, the outer planets were assigned to signs. Neptune was assigned to Pisces, Uranus was assigned to Aquarius, Pluto was assigned to Scorpio, and these became the modern rulers of those signs. So those are the 3 signs that have 2. So with Neptune, and we all have a Neptune, so like we could look in your chart and see like what sign and house your Neptune is in, and we could understand the call of your soul, the soul's evolutionary path that you came here to walk, the spiritual journey, if you will, that you came here to live. And so Neptune as an archetype is about dissolving things. Okay, like, and when you think about water and the power of water, what I think about is the Grand Canyon, okay, because water did that. And I think about like the Hoover Dam, where it's any dam, where it's generating all of this power. And how's it doing that? By holding its water. Powerful stuff, okay. And Neptune is about dissolving things, which is so interesting. It's like that water doesn't want to be held, okay? Like that's like water moves, it flows, and Pisces is a very flowy energy, very much about like go with the flow, take the next step, even though you got no idea where any of that's headed. But Neptune, coming back to Neptune, it's about dissolving boundaries between logical understanding and intuitive knowing. So dissolving the boundary between logical understanding and intuitive knowing. And when you dissolve that boundary and you let it all kind of like dance and weave together, it strengthens both sides, right? Like that Mercury energy on the one side, it asks a different question, because now it's got intuitive knowing in the equation, in the mix, right? Like now we have more information. And on the flip side, like intuitive knowing and then being able to like kind of gather the evidence of the deeper analytical understanding of what it is that you think you know, it just strengthens how much you are able to believe in your intuition, which is to say, create a reality out of choosing to follow that. You know, like it's, dude, blending these is very powerful. Neptune is also about opening channels for spiritual insight and divine guidance, which is really just a fancy way of talking about our intuition. Okay. Like your personal intuition, the flavor of it, the sound of it, the way it talks to you. Everybody's intuition is wired differently, and our Neptune is a big piece of that. There are others that factor into our intuition. I would say like our moon is a good example. But Neptune is also about encouraging development of compassion and universal love. And like the sign, the natal sign of your Neptune will tell you like, how do you show compassion? How do you show universal love? Like, how do you actually demonstrate it? How do you embody it? Every generation, Neptune spends about 14 years per sign. So like, that's one of our generational planets. Every generation has a different way of like when you get into your higher self, when you start living out of your soul self and you're demonstrating that universal love that you've tapped into through the generosity of like how you choose to spend your time and energy on the planet. Every generation is demonstrating their love differently. You know, and that's a beautiful thing. Is like, again, we're all of it. The collective consciousness is all of it. And like, we're just expanding and trying different options, and it's all beautiful. The next one for Neptune is that it's guiding us towards unity consciousness and mystical awareness. And for here, like the interconnectedness of all things, the interconnectedness of all things. Like one of my favorite stories for this, and this has happened to me multiple times, but this is actually my friend's story, is like she was standing there having like this beautiful morning. She's like standing in her patio door. It's like raining outside. She's got like a hot cup of tea, feeling very cozy and enjoying her day. And then out of nowhere, she had just this like wave of sadness, loneliness, disconnection run through her. It was so palpable. And a friend popped into her head of like my friend thought that she was feeling that way, and she was. And then the friend came and she's like, oh yeah, I'll call her and like we can talk and like that'll be good. And actually turns out that that's how the friend was feeling, and was feeling very despondent. And my friend called her seeking her own connection, and was such a gift and blessing to the person that she connected with. So like that energy that comes, that like negative emotion that comes, that lets you reach out for greater connection or reach in for greater connection. We are all in this together. Like you don't know whose sadness, whose grief, whose loneliness, whose disconnection, whose, self beating up you are really feeling, and then you receive a download or an inspiration to reach out to someone. Do it. And basically it's good for both of you, and I understand there's like a process of discernment and building up your trust in which impulses to listen to and which ones to ignore. And I think it goes back to like, does it feel familiar? Is it leading you somewhere familiar? Or is this more like that full body hell yes, where the energy is so strong that you can't not do it? Because if you can't not do it, then you do it because you can't not do it, obviously is meant to happen. Okay. So even in the short term, if you don't necessarily like the outcome of it, everything is always working out for you. So in the longer term picture, there's a benefit of exactly the way it unfolded. And lastly, Neptune represents the path of spiritual evolution through surrender. Okay, through surrender, through letting go of what our mind is chattering on and on and on about. Okay, surrendering to what is, surrendering to the beauty and fullness and the threads that are there to appreciate right now. Like living in love because you choose to. You choose to surrender to the higher power because it feels better than fighting against yourself, and that's a journey that everybody's got to make on their own. And so speaking of the journey we're making, as we go from Mercury to Jupiter, for example, or Mercury to Neptune, we're talking about going from collecting up the information to trusting in what can't be proven. We're going from seeking answers to embracing the question, just enjoying the feeling of even having a question, because most of us skip that part of like the question has no joy in it because I friggin' want the answer. Okay. And right there again, like we're doing it. We're missing the deliciousness of life by failing to appreciate the question, knowing that the question is inviting in the answer, and there's plenty to be grateful for just in even wondering the question. This is deep stuff, and it's like so easier to say than it is to practice, but just one rep at a time, like one moment at a time. Catch yourself not appreciating a moment and ask yourself, like, what thread is here for me to be able to appreciate right now? Going from Mercury to Jupiter, it's from needing to understand to finding peace in not knowing, from practical learning through to wisdom through experience, from detailed analysis to seeing the bigger picture. And then from Mercury to Neptune, it's from logical processing to intuitive knowing, from clear categories to allowing things to blend and merge, from mental clarity to comfortable with uncertainty, right? Like even being able to like enjoy the state of mind that says, I don't really know. And again, most of us don't enjoy that part. We push against that part and try to figure out and try to know some things. And there's no right or wrong, okay? There's no perfect and imperfect. There's only what is, and it's always perfect. So everything is always working out for you. And every time you've ever done that, it's been so perfect and right on time. And going forward, there's a really good chance after sitting through this conversation that you will have a different appreciation for maybe the moments that don't shine as brightly, but that doesn't mean that there's not still magic in them. You know, like just you basically during this time, like we've spent kind of clearing the what's in the way of your eyes being ready to see the magic that is there, that has always been there, that will always be there. And it's just a matter of like, are you tuned into seeing it? Are you choosing to live in reality? Because that's limiting, cutting a lot out. We're going from rigid thinking to expansion, wisdom, and universal understanding. We're going from mental chatter about our endless to-do list mostly to philosophical contemplation and mystical silence, right? Listening to the beyond. We're going from earthly knowledge to spiritual teachings and divine revelation, which comes through that stillness and silence and listening to the beyond. Going from problem solving to finding meaning and surrendering to divine order. Again, everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. What am I doing? I'm surrendering to the divine order. I'm trusting that the reason that it's this way is because it has to be. And so rather than me depriving myself of enjoyment, pleasure, delight, etc., in this moment because I don't get it, I'm going to just go ahead and trust that there obviously is a reason. And at some point, if I need to know it, I'll be filled in. Right now, I don't get it. But even just this feeling of I don't know is kind of fun. There's like a lot of room in here. It's very empty. Like you're just like enjoying it, just like being with what is. And then from serving through doing, oh, I love this one. From serving through doing to teaching through being and healing through presence, right? Going back to what I said of like, I don't need to teach you. I'll just love you and love will teach you. Okay. You'll get it eventually through the consistency of the love that I offer, through the consistency of my being, right? Words don't teach. It's only life experience that teaches. It's only the energetic imprints that we receive from people that cause us to feel a certain kind of way. That gets through. But what somebody says, like the Mercury, the words that they offer, the millions and millions and millions of words that we offer to try to convey understanding to each other, it doesn't work. Like you got to embody it. Embody what you're saying and then let the feeling, let the frequency of your body do the talking. You know, let your presence be the healing, not what you say, not the way you answer the question, not the perfect response, etc., but your own comfort and fulfillment inside your skin. Like let that speak for itself and let people come to that light as they are ready. Okay. Like, 'cause again, when we are trying to make other people be different, when we are trying to get them to understand, when we're trying to teach them and give them all the words and give them all the evidence and give them, read this book and listen to this thing. And like, we're trying to get them to share in our reality, to share in our understanding. It can be really painful and full of suffering for us, the ones doing it, and for the ones on the receiving end of that. So this transit as a whole, like these 18 months is really about going inward and expanding your own ability to be with your own intuition. And like in the next video, we're going to talk more about how to develop your Pisces energy. I mentioned I have 10 different areas where we're going to look in at different angles of Pisces energy and all the ways that you can strengthen this to be more connected and in harmony with the universe itself when with this perfect unfolding of the divine order that is always happening, to be in harmony with it in real time, to be at peace with it in real time, to not need the evidence, to go on faith and let yourself have a gentle ride. It's for you to choose, it's for you to point your compassion at yourself, point your compassion at your inner critic, point your compassion at the part of you that's bullying you. Okay, the part of you that hates yourself, that needs to be needed by other people just so you can feel worthy of having a body and being on the planet, taking up space. Okay, and that got deep real quick, but I'm talking out of my own personal experience. Okay, we get to become the walking embodiment of the love that we so insistently want to give to everyone else. Our job during this Pisces North Node transit is to give it to ourselves, to remember the sacred that is self, right? The being that is looking through your eyes is sacred. And remembering that, that's our job for the next 18 months from January of 25 through July of 26. So we will continue talking all about the Pisces North Node. Grab the North Node guide where you can look at how this transit plays out for you personally in your chart. You can go to owningauthenticity.com/Pisces North Node to download that for free. Leave me a comment as far as what your natal North Node is and what video you're most excited to see when we get into that part of the series. Leave a like on the video. I really appreciate it. Every time you put a thumbs up on one of my videos, that's super helpful for the channel to grow. And until next time, I do hope that you are taking such good care of the precious sacred one that you are grounding that into your being, into every cell of who you are, and that your being is speaking more loudly than words ever could into the ripple effects that it makes in the lives of the people you care about most. Until next time, take really good care, and so will I.